We are leaving wokeness and weakness behind. No more pronouns, no more climate change obsession, no more emergency vaccine mandates, no more dudes in dresses. We're done with that.
We are done with that. Wokeness is weakness. Dogma, Christian dogma, is dominance. The woke left is absolutely panicked that Christian nationalism has officially taken over the U.S. military. So has it? Well, that is exactly what we are going to find out. Hey, gang, it's me, Dr. Steve, your patron professor, here to celebrate right along with you the dawn of a new American golden age that you made possible back on November the 5th. So if you want a front row seat on everything having to do with the rise of a new conservative civilizationalist age all over the world, make sure to smack that bell and subscribe button. Before we dive in here, gang, we do have another war happening right now as we speak, and it's probably not where you think. It's in your gut. A battle between good and bad bacteria can determine the health of the whole of your body, and here's how you're going to win that battle. Kimchi 1 from Brightcore Nutrition is the fermented superfood your body needs to arm good guys with the right weapons to defeat the bad actors once and for all. All health starts in the gut, so putting the right fermented superfood in your gut improves every aspect of your health. Your heart, your brain, even the quality of your skin and the growth of your hair. Containing over 900 strains of beneficial bacteria in each capsule, Kimchi 1 supports healthy digestion, fortifies your immune system, and helps detoxify your body. Kimchi has also been shown to reduce risk of obesity and promote smaller waistlines by curbing appetite and naturally boosting your metabolism. Kimchi 1 is all natural, non-GMO, dairy-free, gluten-free, and 100% made right here in the USA. Today, you can get an exclusive offer by clicking on that link below. Just use code Turley for 25% off your entire order, or for an even better deal, call my friends at Brightcore for up to 50% off your order and free shipping. Give them a call right now at 888-897-0233. That's 888-897-0233. Defense Secretary Pete Hegseth was in Tampa, Florida yesterday to deliver the keynote address at the Special Operations Forces Week 2025 conference. And as you heard, Hegseth focused on three key points: the rebuilding of the U.S. military, reestablishing deterrence, and most importantly, restoring the warrior ethos.
That's been my first priority since day one, is restoring the warrior ethos. It's one of the most fundamental of those three objectives. Humans, more important than hardware. Everything starts and ends with warriors, from training to the battlefield. We are leaving wokeness and weakness behind. No more pronouns, no more climate change obsession, no more emergency vaccine mandates, no more dudes in dresses. We're done with that. We're focused on lethality, meritocracy, accountability, standards, and readiness. That's why since Election Day, since President Trump was elected, recruitment and retention numbers are up historically.
Yes, I and tens of millions of others voted for every single word that came out of his mouth right there, but not everyone did. The woke left is an absolute tizzy over Hegseth, and what they're seeing is nothing less than a Christian nationalist takeover of the U.S. military. In fact, the International Policy Digest recently featured an article openly admitting that Hegseth has already been largely successful in that takeover. They're claiming Christian nationalists have indeed captured the U.S. military. And it's not just the U.S. military per se. As many of you know, the Trump administration has established an anti-Christian bias task force in eradicating what Trump has identified as severe anti-Christian bias within the federal government. The task force is led by Attorney General Pam Bondi, and it's actively reviewing all federal agencies for policies and practices perceived as discriminatory against Christians. And one of the first departments impacted by the task force was the Department of Defense, all branches, as well as in the intelligence agencies. And then VA Secretary Doug Collins sent out a directive ordering all employees in the VA to report policies that are considered hostile to Christian views, specifically seeking instances in which employees believe they were denied promotions for religious reasons or face retaliation for seeking a religious exemption to the vaccine mandates. And keep in mind, this is all happening as the Trump administration is looking to eliminate anywhere from 60 to 80,000 VA jobs. So in accordance with the Project 2025 blueprint, the Trump administration is actively seeking to purge D.C. of all liberal, left-wing, radically secular federal workers and replace them with solid MAGA loyalists, or what some fear most, bona fide pro-Christian theocrats. But what's so astonishing when you read through these panic pieces of a theocratic takeover is how they see it as this takeover as completely nefarious, in that the claimed anti-Christian bias, they argue, simply doesn't exist. These leftists don't believe that the anti-Christian bias in D.C. even exists. I have yet to read a single account freaking out over the rise of Christian nationalism. I have yet to read a single one of those left-wing accounts even remotely admitting that a radical anti-Christian bias does indeed exist among woke left liberals. They operate from the assumption that they are the most tolerant, inclusive, welcoming people on the planet. And so the only possible explanation for why Christian nationalism is spreading and taking over is one of a hostile takeover. You know, you read these complaints, these panic pieces by the woke left, and they all assume that we were living in this peaceful, placid, progressive society under Biden, only to be interrupted and threatened by these Christian nationalist serpents coming out of nowhere. I mean, it's truly a sight to behold in terms of just how completely self-unaware these liberal woke commentators are, and how censorious and how dictatorial they were, especially during the COVID years. The irony here is that their own sins, their own virulent anti-Christian bias, is actually embodied by none other than Pete Hegseth himself. A lot of people don't know that Hegseth was himself a recipient of this anti-Christian bias. He's talked about this. He's written about this in his book, The War on Warriors, just after January 6th. Hegseth's tattoos, his Jerusalem cross, his Deus Vult, right? God wills it, the motto from the First Crusade. They were all scrutinized by military authorities. His loyalties were questioned, and suddenly he was on the outs with the army. After J 6, the Pentagon actually cracked down as a whole on the Army's members, military's members, who overtly celebrated American patriotism. And as part of that, a fellow National Guard soldier had actually flagged Hegseth as a potential insider threat, citing military regulations that prohibit extremist ink in terms of his tattoos. And Pete's orders to guard the Biden inauguration were actually revoked as punishment. So as far as Pete is concerned, I mean, the military that he loved and that he fought for, that military spit him out precisely because of these Christian patriot loyalties. So the notion that there is not an anti-Christian bias in the U.S. military or federal government is demonstrably false, demonstrated by Pete Hegseth himself. I mean, the insurrectionist mythology that infested D.C. after J6 and the legacy media during the whole Biden years was virulent and was used as justification to purge the military of anyone considered sympathetic to J6 sentiments. And now, in what is nothing less than biblical irony, Hegseth has become the Secretary of Defense, the very guy who was fired from helping to oversee security at Biden's inauguration back in 2021, is now the head of the entire military complex. Joseph the prisoner, locked up in a dungeon, the lowest place in all of ancient Egypt, has risen to sit at the right hand of Pharaoh, the highest place in all the land. And as you heard earlier, what motivates Hegseth is the notion that, in the words of Politico's Jasper Craven, who's, from what I could tell, pathetically liberal, but even he recognizes this. What motivates Hegseth is the notion that the Pentagon has become overwhelmed by a soft, incompetent, and prejudicial leadership class that fails to recognize a basic truth. Dogma is the key to dominance. If wokeness leads to weakness, dogma leads to dominance. So Hegseth wrote about this in his book, Man in the Arena, where he notes how he saw, this was a few years back, he saw an image online of a triumphant ISIS fighter with a Quran in one hand and an AK-47 in the other. And Hegseth realized that he was looking at an image of a classical conquering warrior. Obviously, he did not agree with what this ISIS fighter was fighting for, obviously. But Hegseth recognized the undeniable power of someone who is fighting for something greater than himself, greater than his own woke narcissism. This warrior was fighting for God. This warrior was fighting a cosmic battle. And that's what produces the fiercest warriors of them all. These are warriors that don't fear death. These are warriors capable of extraordinary acts of bravery and valor. And even this liberal over at Politico is recognizing that that creed, that dogma is the key to dominance, is precisely what created the ferocity of the U.S. military in the first place. One commentator on that guy's Substack noted prior to 1960, you could easily say that the overwhelming majority of the military, upwards of like 98%, would have agreed with Hegseth's Christian patriotic sentiments. The U.S. military was always a Christian nationalist institution at its core, instilling classical Christian concepts of valor and sacrifice and bravery into their warriors. And that is exactly what Pete Hegseth is in the process of restoring. He's even mandating that I think officers take what's called the CLT test. That's the classical learning test, which is almost like a classical education version of the SATs, but it focuses on history, it focuses on philosophy, it focuses on classical virtues and so on. And what has happened, it's all part of this repudiation of a woke, weak political left that came around and slapped the label white Christian nationalist as a pejorative to deliberately disparage the very sacred foundations upon which the U.S. military was founded and derived and flourished. But unfortunately for these woke leftists, as you heard earlier, Hegseth, our new Joseph, as it were, is implementing precisely that creed, that dogma is dominance, back into the military. The American warrior is back. The real nefarious forces of wokeness have been vanquished. And the U.S. military, now in line, it looks like the restoration of our republic does indeed appear at hand. Hey there, Turley Talker. You know what? I'd love to hear from you. That's why I'm launching the Dr. Steve Hotline, where you can call in, leave a question, and maybe even hear your own voice featured on an upcoming episode of the show. Whether it's about the latest political shakeup or cultural trends or how we keep pushing forward in this new conservative age, I want to know what's on your mind. Call me at 717-844-5984. Just leave your question. I'll be checking in every single week to answer as many as I can. Again, that's 717-844-5984. Your chance to be a part of the conversation. One more time, 717-844-5984. Give me a call and let's talk.